Hello, everyone. My name is Keyvan Mohajer. I'm one of the partners at Pear Ventures. We are an early stage seed technology fund here in Silicon Valley. We started the firm 7 years ago with the goal and mission to be the best partner for entrepreneurs going from 0 to 1 stages. Our most notable investments are DoorDash, Garden Health, Gusto, Branch Metrics, and many others that you haven't heard, but I'm pretty sure they're going to be category defining companies. I am utterly excited to have my dear friend Keyvan Mohajer, co-founder and CEO of SoundHound, on this talk. This conversation is part of the Pear Speaker Series, but we just started Pear Persian Founders Stories, and I thought it's better to represent this great community of Iranian American founders than Keyvan. So Keyvan, thank you so much for joining me today. I really, really appreciate it. It's good to see you again.
Thank you for having me.
Before we get to SoundHound, I actually want to start by what your wife Audrey said on your wedding day. I was there, and thank you so much for inviting me with my wife. She said when she met you, you were working so hard that you're not buying anything for yourself, including shoes, and you had a running shoes and shoe maybe for work. That's it. And then she had to go and buy shoes for you, and it's still the same thing. I actually secretly talked to her today, and he said, Keyvan, it still is the same thing. She has a pair of shoes that your mother-in-law, her mother, bought for you for running and casual work, and that tells you who you are. So I know you have been working hard in SoundHound, and I just want to put it out there that you're an entrepreneur that walks through the wall and make it happen. I'm pretty sure our audience will learn more about you and your character. But tell us about SoundHound, because you have multiple products. And before I start to say why did you start it, explain what SoundHound is.
Yeah, we are a 15-year-old startup with the vision to build voice AI as a platform. So we specialize in speech recognition and natural language understanding, and enabling any company that has a product to add voice AI to the product. And we think voice AI is the future of human-computer interaction. I can tell you more about
tell us more, like because some people know SoundHound as the music discovery, but I know you're a lot bigger and more than just music discovery. And open it up for our audience, that what are the products that you have and some of the customers, that if you can reveal who is using it.
Yeah, absolutely. We power several car companies like Mercedes-Benz, Hyundai, Kia, Honda, PSA. But we're not just in automotive. We power the Pandora app, the music streaming. We power voice-enabled drive-thrus through a partnership with MasterCard. We power Deutsche Telekom's smart speaker called Magenta. Recently announced partnership with Snapchat. So both in automotive and outside of automotive. So those are some of the customers that we have recently announced, but a lot more in the works.
And how about the consumer? I assume SoundHound is still going on as a consumer. So can you talk a little bit more about the consumer part of your company?
Yeah, we started SoundHound as a voice AI company. That was always our vision. And this goes back to 15, 20 years ago. We decided that we need to own our own tech to be a major player and make a big impact and a disruptor, both in terms of technology and business model. It turns out that building the technology in voice AI it takes 10 plus years, whether you start today or 10 years ago. And it's not practical for a startup to spend 10 years in R&D and raise money and just do development in stealth. So we launched several products out of that research. One of them was a music identification product that understood both recorded audio that's playing in the background, and if you sing or hum a song with your voice. That product turned out to be very successful. It has been downloaded more than 300 million times, and it basically funded the first 10 years of our operation. During that 10 years, the majority of the company was focused on building the Houndify platform, which was really our main vision. And somebody said SoundHound, it was the best kept secret in Silicon Valley. We really did a good job keeping it a secret.
Yes, I know for 9 years you
Yeah.
worked on this secret project. So I haven't seen any startups that it can keep 9 years of product development like
Right.
what you have done. And I think what is astonishing to me that you didn't raise much capital and you use SoundHound revenue through consumer to really support the efforts of building the actual Hound and Houndify.
Yeah, so the SoundHound music app, it wasn't a pivot. Like some people think we pivoted from music to voice. It was always voice. And SoundHound did a few things. One is it was fun. It funded our operation. It also helped us become good at productizing technology because our DNA was we were a bunch of technologists. I didn't really have a good appreciation for products and graphics and user experience, and that really helped us.
I actually want to speak about that because when you started SoundHound, you were still a PhD student at Stanford University studying electronic engineering. Can you share how did you start SoundHound and what happened?
Yeah, I can give you the long version.
Was it back in 2004 or 5? I know the company formed in 2005, but you started before. So walk us through the history of forming and starting SoundHound.
Yeah, so I had some entrepreneurial experience when I was a child. I actually started my first company when I was younger than 10 years old. And I came up with this idea to 100x an investment in one day. So I'll tell you the 1-minute version of it. There was this children playground in Iran where I grew up, where kids just played every evening. And I made a little bonfire by the playground, and I bought one bread dough for 1 unit of money, let's say $1. And I turned these little mini breads. So I turned one bread dough to 100 breads, small breads, and I cooked them in front of the kids. And I sold each bread for 1 unit of money to those kids. And the value I delivered was obviously enjoying freshly baked bread, but also experiencing performing a transaction because children really like to be like grown-ups, and it was easy for them to get 1 unit of money from their parents, and then they would bring that and we did the exchange. So every day I turned $1 to $100. And eventually came up with the idea of upselling. So I added lemon flavor for $2 and then chocolate flavor for $3. So I had this itch of creating businesses and creating value. And then my family moved to Canada in 1995, where I finished my high school and did engineering in University of Toronto. And there I started 3 companies when I was 19, 20, and 21. So by the time I graduated, I had some experience and I really reflected what I want to do. And I decided that I want to be the technical founder of a very high-tech startup that would make a big impact in the world. And I would spend a major part of my life in that company. So I didn't really want to be a serial entrepreneur and start too many things. I wanted to make a big impact. And I wanted to be a technical founder. So with that decision, I thought I need to go to grad school. So that brought me here to Stanford in the year 2000. So I still didn't know what it was that I wanted to do. I just knew that I had to go to grad school and learn more. So between the year 2000 and a few years after that, I searched for what that big thing was. And the question that I came up with was, what would happen for sure in my lifetime that would make a big impact in the world? And to answer that question, I turned to sci-fi and started watching Star Trek. And there are a few concepts in Star Trek that is the norm in that era, but they don't exist. And at least 5 of them I identified. One of them was going faster than the speed of light. Another one was teleportation. So you basically stand here and you get teleported to another location. Great feature. Hopefully somebody will make it. Another one was holodecks. So there you go into these rooms and it makes it look like you're in a different place and you see and feel being in a different place. And those seem like they might happen in our lifetime. Another one is replicators. So you basically tell this device, I want to build this kind of food or this kind of device, and also a very disruptive product. The one that I thought for sure would happen in my lifetime was voice AI. So, and this is 20 years ago. So in these science fiction movies, people talk to robots, talk to computers, talk to rooms, and those devices talk back and you have a conversation. It just seems very normal. I thought, well, that should happen in my lifetime, and I wanted to be the one to do it. So with that. And
actually, I remember like, speaking of that, I think the very first time you and I met and you were telling me what company you're building, I exactly remember you told me, Pejman, in the future, we're going to speak to our refrigerators. And I want to build that technology. And you walk to your kitchen and you can talk to your refrigerator, you can talk to your coffee machine and so on. And I thought for me was so sci-fi, but I think your insane belief that this happened was so convincing to me. And I want to jump into, because I know when you started the real breakthrough of SoundHound, I think happened in the December of that year, that you and your co-founders locked yourself down in the dorm room. You didn't get out, except the Christmas day you went to Palo Alto, El Camino Real to grab burrito for yourself and your team, and you go back. So I think for now, I don't know for how many days you were locked in the room, didn't go out until this breakthrough happened. Talk about those days and tell us, what was the breakthrough?
Yes, I remember those days very clearly. So we were building a voice AI company, and we did that for a few years in the dorm room with my co-founders. And then I went to one investor and I told them, in 10 to 20 years, we will talk to everything. And they talk back to us. And I would like to raise money to build that future. And the feedback from a traditional VC, this is kind of maybe older way of thinking, was, well, that's 10 to 20 years is way too long. We only invest in things that happen faster. Also, you can't raise money to do R&D. You have to do the R&D on your own and then come and show us what you've done. So that was a little bit eye-opening. So we back to the dorm room. I said, well, what are we going to do now? Because we've done all this work with analyzing human voice. And one of the ideas that we came up with, one of my co-founders came up with, was, well, can we build a query by humming engine? So when you hum a song, and we can tell you what song it is. And that seemed like a good idea at the time, because those days, if you could search something that Google couldn't search, it seemed hot. And we thought, yeah, we could actually do that very quickly. And that's when we actually locked ourselves in a dorm room for a long time, but it was like for 2 weeks during the Christmas break of 2004. We didn't leave the dorm room for 2 weeks. And so we are not going to leave until we had this database of melodies that, like, you have to hum a song and it has to give you the right song. And the song that I kept humming was the Godfather soundtrack. And like, I drove people crazy just humming that song 1,000 times a day. And finally on Christmas, I hummed the song, and it's Godfather soundtrack. And we're just so happy. So let's go celebrate. But nothing was open. This is like early 2000s. And after the .com bubble burst, like, there were no restaurants and everything was shut down. But we found this taqueria in El Camino Real that was open. So we all went and had the best burrito.
You know, that's amazing. So today, AT&T, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, they have a platform, voice recognition, only a few companies, and one of them is SoundHound. Even in those days, they had their voice recognition, they're working on it. And this is often a question for founders when they are building something new and giant companies have the same kind of technology or product. How was that an influence in shaping how you're building it, and how do you face those challenges of building a company, you know, a few founders in a dorm at Stanford going against Google and Amazon and Apple of the world?
Yeah, that's a question that we come across often at different stages, even at the beginning and even now. People ask, well, how do you compete with the giants? I think the first step is not to be afraid. If you have a passion for something and you're committed to it, don't be afraid. Even those big giants used to be small. Like Google was not the first search engine, and there were two grad students that had a very good idea, and a lot of investors declined them, like not another search engine, but they managed to build a very big, powerful company. So just not being afraid is very important, and making sure you hire people who are not afraid, and you raise money from people who are not afraid, because once you have fearful people around the table, they can actually really pollute the environment. It's actually a funny story. When we had our first funding, which Pejman, you gave us, we moved from a dorm room to an office, again, which you facilitated. And we said, okay, we have our own office, guys. Let's go shopping and buy what we need. So we made a little shopping list and said, everybody just write down what we need. So we were like erasers and pens, pencils, paper clips. And one of us put Google. I said, one day we will buy Google. So we had that kind of silly ambition in the early days. I think we also set the bar high. We thought we don't want to just be an independent player that has an inferior technology. We said we want our technology to be better than the giants. And maybe that's why it took 10 years, because for the first 6 years, we kept failing. We had this really high bar, and we kept trying and it didn't work, and we kept trying, it didn't work, and we failed and we learned from those failures. And finally, after 10 years in 2015, we knew that what we had was very special, and we proudly unveiled it. And even after 5 years, those giants haven't been able to catch up. In fact, I'll do maybe do a quick demo.
Yes, I actually think it would be great for people to know, because it's unbelievable what you have built. So show it to us.
Yeah, so I always get in trouble doing live demos because something can go wrong, but I keep taking the risk. So I'm going to show you our Hound app, which is powered by our Houndify platform. And Houndify platform is what powers a lot of products out there, and with the growing number of partnerships that we are announcing. And our vision is, when we talk to each other, we talk with complex conversations like right now. But when we talk to computers, we have learned to lower our expectation. So we talking keywords, and we think computers won't be able to understand. We have to make it very simple. But it should be the other way around, because computers are better at computing than humans. So why is it that we have to lower our expectation instead of raising our expectation? And the answer is the limitation in the technology in natural language understanding. And that's what we really wanted to fix. So we said there has to be no limit in how complex a conversation can get. So if you ask today, like ask Siri or Google or other assistants, show me restaurants excluding Chinese. Because let's say you had Chinese food yesterday and you don't want Chinese food today. They all give you Chinese restaurants because they match the keywords of Chinese and restaurant and say, show me restaurants excluding Chinese. It says, here are some Chinese restaurants. And we just learn not to try those things. But with our technology, it can be a lot more complicated. So this is where I'm going to do a demo. Show me Asian restaurants excluding Chinese and Japanese in San Francisco, and only show the ones that have more than 3 stars and are open after 9 p.m. on Wednesdays.
Here are several Asian restaurants with more than 3 stars in San Francisco that are open after 9 p.m. on Wednesdays, excluding Chinese restaurants, Japanese restaurants, or sushi bars.
So I was able to ask very complex questions, exclusions, double negation, compound criteria, and it even read back to me the criteria that it understood to give me confidence that I'm not just giving you keyword results, I'm giving you exactly what you asked. And then you can follow up and refine it. You can say,
Can you show what they show you?
Oh,
I mean, maybe.
yes. Let me see if I can can see the, I don't know if it's
But
gonna work.
basically it's series of, okay, I got it. These are
These are the results, but hopefully you can hear the response. And then I can say, remove Korean and Vietnamese, sort by rating them by price, and only show the ones that are good for kids and have a patio.
Okay, showing 7 Asian restaurants sorted by rating, then sorted by lowest price that are kid-friendly, and have outdoor seating excluding Korean restaurants or Vietnamese restaurants.
And it's not just about restaurant search. You can ask for something like, what's the monthly payment on $1 million home with 20% down, paid over 30 years with a 3.5% interest rate?
Your mortgage payment is $3,592.36.
You can also have compound questions across multiple domains, like, what is the capital of Germany, France, and Italy, and how's the weather in San Francisco?
The capital is Berlin for Germany, Paris for France, and Rome for Italy. The weather is 56 degrees and sunny in San Francisco.
So
there's a quick demo to show.
Yeah, it's incredible. Every time you show me this, it just blows my mind that it's just incredible. And I know, I think once I showed it and I said, find me hotels in New York that is between $200 and $300 and has pool and spa or whatever. It was just like incredible to my friends. It's just kind of unreal. Congratulations. And my question is follow this. I mean, you had this vision, 20 years ago, and you built the company, but how do you balance this day-to-day execution with keeping focus on your long-term vision? It's not easy. So how do you balance that?
Yeah, you have to constantly zoom in and zoom out. So you zoom in to execute, and then you zoom out to sense check to make sure you're on the right direction. And you have to constantly grow with the new challenges. And I think for us, one of the biggest challenges it just took a long time. And when something takes a long time, there are sometimes people who have doubts, like, why don't you just license this from someone else and build a product, or why don't we just focus on music recognition? And I had to constantly re-inspire people and make them remember that they believe in the vision and just not deviate from the goal that we had set. And that was very challenging. But at the end, we made it.
Well, my next question is like a question that every founder has is, you were a technology scientist and now you're a leader of the multi-billion-dollar company with 400 employees. Your customers are Mercedes-Benz of the world. How did you train yourself to be a leader from a technologist to be a CEO and running such a massive operation? What have you done? What did you do? And what are the advice you have to the founders? Because, I actually, always believes the best CEOs are the founders, that they can train themselves and grow. So I just want to know, what have you done in order to transition from a technologist to be still a technologist, but a CEO of this company?
Yeah, I think constantly growing is the key, and making sure you acknowledge the areas you're not good at and making sure you become good at those and constantly pushing your boundaries. And I always tell my colleagues, if somebody asks you, what's your biggest weakness? And you're 19 years old and you answer that question. And then if somebody asks you the same question 5 years later, and if you have the same answer, then shame on you, because your weakness and challenges should change over time. And we used to be good at technology, but not good at products. Then we became good at products, not good at marketing and adoption. We became good at that, and then we were not good at monetization. We became good at that, and then recruiting was a challenge, and we became good at that. So you have to constantly push yourself and grow. You have to surround yourself with people who are better than you in what they do. And that has been one of the best things that I have done. Just everybody around me is better than me in what they do. And what's my one advice to entrepreneurs? I think the biggest advice that I learned on my own was, don't follow an advice that you don't understand. And those are some of the mistakes I made in the early days, when culturally, I'm very polite and really respect people who are older than me. And then sometimes people who are older than me and wiser than me and more experienced than me told me, you should do this, you should do that. And that politeness in me kicked in, and I did what they say without really understanding it, without believing in it. And some of those advices were good, but some of them turned out to be wrong for us. And when people ask me what's one advice you have for entrepreneurs, don't follow an advice that you don't fully understand. Just make sure you understand it, make sure you dig in, make sure you believe in it yourself, because once you execute on it, you are responsible for it, not the person who gave you the advice.
That's amazing. I just remember that when we met, and this is like 15, 16 years ago, one of the challenges you had was about privacy in music. And you went and talked to maybe the #1 lawyer in the world who advised companies on privacy issues. And somehow he or she said, this is impossible, you cannot do it. You didn't believe it. And you said, Keyvan, I'm going to go spend this week and read everything in law about this. And you found out there is a loophole around it that this lawyer didn't know. And that allow you to build Humming over there. So it tells you who you are. Yes, you listen to the advice, maybe the #1 lawyer in the world, very famous, who understand and works with, all of these music companies. Anyway, it's just very telling. I want to go back to building the team, because I know a lot of founders in early stages are on this panel. I mean, this attendees here. When you start a company, especially today, it's just so competitive to hire talent, especially when you have talents who have either working at big companies like Google and Apple, and you want to convince them to join you, and you start small company, raise a little bit money. So you went through it. I mean, tell us a little bit more about the early days of SoundHound, and how were you able to convince people to join your company?
Yeah, the early days were easier because we had the Stanford connection, and my co-founders and friends and so on. And I had a bit of experience making sure not to have to avoid bad co-founders and so on. So, but it becomes more difficult as the excitement goes away and you're really running a business, and then especially for us, it was challenging because our vision was a secret. So we had to find people who had the same passion for that vision, but our vision wasn't public, and then we had to convince them to join us. So that was difficult, and our CTO really helped with hiring. He just made sure we don't lower our bar. You set the right bar for hiring, and just because it's tempting to fill a role, sometimes you might lower your bar to just check that box, and we just did not do that. Sometimes we interviewed people, more than 100 people, and sometimes it took more than a year to fill one role. And the mentality is that we want to be a very good company, but we will only be as good as our people. So if our team members are A+, we can be an A+ company. But if our team members are not A+, then we won't be a good company. And if you really believe in that, it will help you keep your bar high. And then once you hire those superstars, they can change the equation for you. So even one good hire can really put the company on a different trajectory. And if you believe in that, you stay true to your standards and make sure you have a really good team.
Very good. I have more questions, but I want to make sure I ask the audience attend this question. Mike has asked, what has been your biggest mistake to date? I assume, let's talk about SoundHound. What is it? Has there been any one big mistake you think you have made?
Fortunately, we haven't had catastrophic mistakes. And I guess partly because we are super careful. We are ambitious, but also conservative in our in our decisions, and very thoughtful. But I would go back to just following the bad advice, because without understanding it, there are a few times where I did something that maybe hired the wrong person. Like, you should hire this person. This person is very good. And say, okay, yeah, sure. And I kind of paid the price for it for years to come. So I've had a few of those, but it hasn't been as catastrophic.
Tara is asking, what are some good habits you try to keep in order to help and preserve your motivation and drive for success?
I think you have to enjoy your work, because it will be difficult. Success is not easy, and sometimes you might read something in the news about someone who was successful that made it look like easy, but I guarantee you that success is not easy. So if something is going to take a long time and it's going to be very difficult, you have to enjoy it. And if you wake up one day and you realize that, oh, I'm not enjoying this, then you have to change something. Maybe there are coworkers that you don't like, or maybe projects that you're not passionate about, or that somehow you've gotten on a trajectory that is wrong for you, and you need to make sure you fix those, and you have to enjoy it. And if you don't enjoy it, I don't think people will last.
Keyvan, I have a question. What does a typical day look like for you? Just tell us from morning you wake up. What is a typical day, especially working remote?
Yeah, I used to not be a morning person when I was in college, but I have become a morning person. I think maybe just this kind of life changes you. So I wake up really early, sometimes too early. Sometimes like I have woken up at like 1 a.m. or 3 a.m. and start working, but usually I like to, I want to have a few hours before the world begins. And that's the time where I really do my magic, because there's no distraction. I'm on top of the world, and I can really innovate on just make sure I make the best decisions. So that's the biggest part of, and I want to make sure I don't have meetings early in the morning, so that I can really focus on those things. And then the rest, just meetings, try to exercise, try to make time for family, and don't just be a good CEO or executive or technologist, be a good husband, be a good father, be a good friend, and just keep it balanced.
Everybody who knows you says you're so respectful, you're so kind, and you take a lot of responsibility for everybody around you. And I recently learned that you ran half a marathon on the broken foot, but you didn't mention it. And you ran the whole thing, and you didn't want to hurt anybody. You are running on the broken foot. So it's unbelievable. So what happened that day?
We had signed up for that half marathon, and there was no way to get out of it. And before that, we went to some exercise camp to kind of get ready for it. And I broke my foot there. But yeah, I ran the half marathon on a broken foot.
You told me 16 years ago that one day we're going to talk to our refrigerator, and they're going to talk you back. Well, tell us what is our world will look like in 20 years?
Yeah. So by the way, when I said that, until about 5 years ago, more than half the time people had doubts. Like,
yes,
you really think we're going to talk to our refrigerators and toasters? And I was like, yeah. But it's happening. So people they never ask that question. So I had all these like answers to convince people that will happen. So we are very fortunate that we had the vision early, and we aligned ourselves in that direction. I think the other things that you see in sci-fi, science fiction will happen. I think we will have autonomous cars. I think we will have both AI and voice AI will be a big part of our lives. people talk about, I don't know, 70 billion IoT devices. They don't really talk as much about the interface to those devices. Like these devices probably will be too small to have a microphone. I'm sorry, they will be too small to have a keyboard and a mouse, but they can always have a small microphone. So you will have all these things that are connected, have a microphone, they can hear you can hear them, and you can talk to them. And they are at your service. And I think there will be multiple assistants. Companies like Google and Amazon, they are trying to have one assistant, like Google everywhere or Alexa everywhere. We think that there will be multiple assistants. And the way I've learned to prove it is proof by an example. So imagine in the future, we live among robots. So 10 billion people and 20 billion robots. Will all those robots have the same name? Will they all be called Google or Alexa? Obviously, no. Every robot will have its own name. They will have their own personalities, and they will be good at different things. Some of them will be doctors, some of them will be teachers, some of them will be cleaners, some of them will be your friends. And you learn to know their name, you learn to know their personality, and you learn to respect them and coexist with them. And that's the future that we envision, and that's the future we are working on realizing with our technology.
Right. I know as an Iranian American immigrant, food is such a big part of our life. So I just want to switch to your personal liking. And do you have I know, but Audrey told me that you like sushi, Japanese food a lot. But I want to ask, what is your favorite Persian food?
Oh, wow. As once in a while I get the craving for, it's hard to pick, but I think if you don't like gourmet sabzi, in fact, I had to make sure my wife, who's not Iranian, likes gourmet sabzi before we get married. And my father-in-law makes the best gourmet sabzi. So,
oh, wow.
That really took it to the finish line. I think I like fesenjun a lot. So if I had to pick.
Great. For those of you who haven't had it, I just really encourage to just search for what Keyvan said about Persian food. Do you think being an immigrant and being part of the culture that really praises science and math have anything into shaping your love for technology and being an entrepreneur? As an Iranian American founder of a giant big company.
Yeah, so I have been a sci-fi fan most of my life. It really inspires me and gives me a lot of motivation to try to make science fiction into reality. Obviously, different people have different passions, but I really wanted to align my life with my passion, and that was science fiction. Growing up, I did well in math, and I did well in undergrad. I was got the highest grade in my undergrad, so I did well in school. But that's not enough to do well as an entrepreneur. You need to have multiple dimensions. You need to be smart. You need to be creative. You need to have courage. And I've seen people who are smart and creative, but you need to have courage to really do things that others don't do. You need to have stamina because it takes a long time. And you need to have luck because you can have all the ingredients, but you also need to have some stars aligned for you. And I call those the ingredients of success, because if you ask me what's the recipe for success, I don't think anybody has that. Otherwise, everybody would be successful. But I've come up with the ingredients for success, which is intelligence, creativity, courage, stamina, and luck. And when I presented that to my colleagues, I said, you can achieve all of these. You can learn to be smart. You can learn to be creative. You can push yourself to have courage, and you can push yourself to have stamina. And then they said, well, how do you achieve luck? And my answer is you can achieve luck by making sure you have time. And you buy time by raising a lot of money. So you make sure you don't run out of money as you are executing. And that's
Yes,
one of
that's
the,
a good suggestion.
yeah, one of the first advices actually that Cameron Elahian gave me when he gave us the first $5 million check was money is, as a CEO of a company, money is more important than your mother. So you have to make sure you never run out of money. And that was one of the good advices that I received.
Yes. Great. I know there are so many questions here, but we're running out of time. I want to close this question by what Audrey, your wife, asked me to ask you. You're a recent dad, and what is the favorite part of being a dad for you?
Oh, wow. It's just every day is full of joy with Juliet and our new baby daughter. And we are lucky that she's so sweet, and every time she sees me, she smiles, and it has given me a new sense of purpose and a new dimension. And I love every minute of being with her, and I just want to take care of her and teach her everything I know, and help her be better than me. And that purpose is the most wonderful thing that I have.
Well, great. Well, thank you, Keyvan, very much. This meant a lot to me. I really appreciate it. Your friendship and partnership means a lot to me, and I'm pretty sure the audience has learned so much. For those of you who want to listen and watch this, we're going to have the recorded version of our website soon, pair.vc. And I think you should definitely check our speaker series schedule. We have amazing founder CEO. But Keyvan, I just want to thank you again so much. Every time I see you and meet you and I talk to you, I just inspired. The problem is that you raise the bar so high of finding the next entrepreneur. It makes our job at Pair much more difficult to find people like you. But thank you again so much. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, and thanks everyone in the audience as well.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.